Number of mainland visitors at the start of National Day Golden Week goes up. U.S. government in partial shutdown as glitches plague Obamacare rollout. A U.S.-South Korean agreement to help Seoul deter military threats from the north.
Good evening. With the new tourism law now in effect, the number of mainland tour groups visiting Hong Kong is expected to drop, but tourists traveling on their own are on the rise. And with forced shopping banned under the new law, the Travel Industry Council believes visitors will be better protected as a result. Jenny Lam reports.
There wasn't much evidence of the tough tourism season travel agencies warned about at this jewellery shop today. The manager says they are busier now than ever before. Visitors we talked to were only too pleased that they are no longer forced to shop at designated places. According to Immigration Department figures, there was a 17% increase this year in the number of people who entered Hong Kong on the first day of the National Day Golden Week holiday when compared with a year ago. They included 160,000 mainland visitors, a 60% rise from last year's corresponding figure. The number of people who made the trip via the East Rail exceeded 180,000, again higher than last year's figure of 160,000. Long Chi Kwong, chairman of the Hong Kong Railway Employees Union, says they have to deploy extra staff and open extra ticketing counters to cope with the rising number of mainland visitors under the individual travel scheme. Those who did join a tour are now having to pay more than they used to. The Travel Industry Council, or TIC, says 80% of tour groups from the mainland in the past were shopping tours that charged participants extremely low fees but made profits through their shopping and spending at designated shops. Now, shopping tours accounted for only 20% of all tour groups from the mainland. Under the new tourism law announced by mainland authorities, travel agencies are not supposed to force visitors to buy stuff. But today, these people outside a shop in Hong Kong said their bookings still specified they must come here. The new mainland law aims at protecting travellers from getting ripped off, but shopping tours are still allowed as long as visitors know what they have signed up for. TIC Director Joseph Tung hopes the new rules against forced shopping will reduce the number of disputes between mainland tourists and their guides. He says visitors might have paid less for their tours in the past, but all the commission and tips they ended up paying often added up to more than what they might be asked to pay now. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
Chief Secretary for Administration Carrie Lam has defended the government's decision not to set an overall poverty reduction target. But as Ronnie Samtani reports, critics accuse the administration of lacking determination to fight the problem.
According to the government, about 1 out of 6 Hong Kong residents lives in poverty, and officials have come under fire for not setting a target to tackle the problem. Chief Secretary for Administration Carrie Lam said today that the government will evaluate the effectiveness of each poverty alleviation measure, which she insisted has the same effect as setting a target. Speaking on a radio show, Lam said the impact of a new measure on poverty can be estimated from the start. And after a while, people can look back and see if the impact has its desired effect. And if not, see what went wrong. But the Labour Party accused the government of failing to deal with the heart of the problem.
This is totally unacceptable because the whole purpose of a poverty line is to raise the population, the poor population in Hong Kong above the poverty line. I would want to ask them, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of monitoring? Are you afraid of setting a target and not meeting it? So it shows that the government really don't have the determination to reduce the poverty.
The party suggested goals such as reducing by half the number of people living in poverty in 4 years. And the lawmaker Sid Ho, also of the Labour Party, pointed out that the previous administration cut nearly $20 billion from the budget during the financial crisis, and that money was never put back in. Ronnie Samtani, TVB News.
A number of pan-democratic lawmakers want to invoke special LegCo powers to investigate the Development Secretary's potential conflict of interest case over land assets held by his family in the Northeast New Territories. The legislators criticized Paul Chan for failing to clarify all the issues surrounding these assets, as the media continued to expose information that conflicted with his explanations. Meanwhile, Chan continues to lead the massive Northeast New Territories development plan.
We have given adequate time for Ms. Chan to disclose all the details of the ownerships and shareholders of at least three companies which is registered outside Hong Kong, namely in the British Virgin Islands. But unfortunately, to our disappointment, nothing has been disclosed to the public as well as to the Legislative Council.
For the first time in 17 years, large sections of the U.S. government were shut down today, rendering close to 1 million employees furloughed. This happened because the U.S. Congress failed to agree on funding for the new fiscal year due to a standoff over President Barack Obama's signature health care plan.
The grim face-off in Washington continued today as Republicans accused Democrats for not wanting to negotiate a solution to the shutdown of federal agencies, national parks, and research facilities across the nation.
My goodness, they won't even sit down and have a discussion about this. Our country has big problems.
About 800,000 employees, about a third of America's federal workforce, have been forced off the job. Outside the White House, an angry President Barack Obama said it's Republicans who are holding America's economy hostage over a ploy to stop Obamacare.
They've shut down the government over an ideological crusade to deny affordable health insurance to millions of Americans.
Those beginning their first day of being furloughed blame Congress as a whole for the shutdown showdown.
And I just feel like Congress isn't doing their job.
No, I just hope they can come to a decision. This is stupid.
Nearly 400 national parks and museums were also rendered closed. Had someone not moved the barricades, veterans trying to see their own memorial would have been stopped. A tragedy this Republican lawmaker swears they tried to prevent.
We sent over 4 different funding bills to fully fund government to fund this memorial, and Harry Reid refused to even look at them, and President Obama wouldn't deal at all.
Republicans say the only reason they tried heading off Obamacare is that covering millions of uninsured Americans is a losing pipe dream. They pointed to technical glitches and heavy internet traffic during today's official online launch. On its first day, over 2.8 million people tried visiting the new healthcare site. But at least 47 states throughout the day were presented with frequent error messages or traffic overload. To which Obama said the demand for affordable health care is so great that glitches are inevitable. Obama is now calling on Republicans to reopen the government and put hardworking Americans back to work.
The United States and South Korea agreed today to strengthen Seoul's ability to deter threats from North Korea. The two sides also agreed to review the timing of a transfer of wartime control of South Korean forces from Washington to Seoul. Alan Booknia reports.
U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel met with his South Korean counterpart in Seoul for the 45th annual security meeting between the two countries. While urging North Korea to abandon its nuclear ambitions, the two sides endorsed a new military strategy to better coordinate a response to an attack from Pyongyang.
Of particular concern are North Korea's nuclear and ballistic missile programs, its proliferation activities, and its chemical weapons. This will create a strategic policy-level framework within the alliance for deterring these specific threats, and help us work together more seamlessly to maximize the effects of our deterrence.
South Korean Defense Minister Kim Kwon-jin said because of the nuclear threat posed by the North, the two countries will also consider delaying the deadline for when Seoul is supposed to assume wartime control of the country's defense forces. The initial target date of 2012 was already pushed back to 2015. U.S. control of the forces is a holdover from the Korean War of the early 1950s.
The United States remains committed to using all our military capabilities, including missile defense, conventional strike, and our nuclear umbrella.
At the United Nations, North Korea blamed the hostile policy of the United States for the continuing tension on the Korean peninsula. North Korean Vice Foreign Minister Pak Kil-yeon told the UN General Assembly the only way to bring about lasting peace there is for the U.S. to lift all its sanctions and to end its military threats. Alan Booknia, TVB News.
A day after 3 U.S. diplomats were expelled from Venezuela by President Nicolas Maduro, the U.S. retaliated by doing the exact same thing. The State Department ordered 3 Venezuelan diplomats to leave the U.S. They are Chargé d'Affaires Calixto Ortega Rios, along with the second secretary at the Washington Embassy and the Houston Consulate. Just like Maduro gave the American diplomats 48 hours to leave, the U.S. ordered the same for Venezuela's trio of diplomats. Maduro accuses the American diplomats of meeting with right-wing opposition leaders and trying to sabotage the nation's electricity grid and its economy. There was an angry response from Iran to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's declaration that the only way to stop Tehran from developing nuclear weapons is to combine sanctions with a military threat. Netanyahu told the United Nations General Assembly that the new Iranian president, Hassan Rouhani, is not much different from his hardline predecessor, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad.
Now, I know Rouhani doesn't sound like Ahmadinejad. But when it comes to Iran's nuclear weapons program, the only difference between them is this. Ahmadinejad was a wolf in wolf's clothing. Rouhani is a wolf in sheep's clothing. A wolf who thinks he can pull the wool over the eyes of the international community.
We just heard an extremely inflammatory statement by the last speaker in the General Assembly's general debate, in which he made allegations against peaceful nuclear activities of my country. I do not want to dignify such unfounded accusation with an answer other than categorically rejecting them all. He tried to mislead this august body about the Iranian nuclear program.
Welcome back. Burst pipe in To Kwa Wan caused traffic chaos in the district for most of the day. It was the second such incident in 3 weeks in that area. The Water Supplies Department has warned the problem may happen again because of aging pipes. Jenny Lam reports.
The burst pipe was at the junction of Ma Ta Wai Road and Chi Kang Street. Salt water started gushing out of the 15-inch diameter pipe at about 4 a.m., tearing up the road service. A section of Ma Ta Wai Road was closed to Kwun Tong-bound traffic and vehicles were diverted to a back street. Part of the fast lane for traffic heading towards Tsim Sha Tsui also had to be closed. Emergency repair works were carried out and the road was fully reopened to traffic in the late afternoon. Residents of the area complained that they had to walk the extra distance to their bus stops. This lad gave up on public transport altogether and walked to school. This was the second time in 3 weeks that a burst pipe disrupted traffic flow on Ma Ta Wai Road, and the two locations are quite a distance apart. A Water Supplies Department engineer, Lam Wai Kay, says aging pipes could be part of the problem and traffic diversions put in place to facilitate the construction of the MTR's Sha Tin to Central link may have added extra load on the pipes, he added. The Water Supplies Department is gradually replacing old pipes with new ones while the construction is underway, and the replacement is expected to be finished by the end of the year. Members of the Kowloon City District Council's Traffic and Transport Committee will meet with government officials this week to discuss how to deal with problems related to the burst pipes. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
The Legislative Council will continue to scrutinize the stamp duty amendment bill tomorrow. A survey carried out by the Chinese University has found that most people are in favor of tough measures to control housing prices. Jenny Lam again.
Property agents have been voicing their opposition to property cooling measures, saying they have resulted in a sharp fall in property transactions and a big reduction in their income. Researchers at the Chinese University asked 821 adults what they thought about the measures. 63% were in favour of tough new measures, such as the special stamp duty and buyer's stamp duty. 14% thought the policies should be even tougher. 13% thought the special stamp duty should be lower, and only 4% thought it should be scrapped. 45% of the respondents did not agree that Hong Kong-owned companies, charity organisations and commercial property buyers should be exempted from special stamp duty or the double stamp duty. 23% thought they should. Are these tough measures effective in cooling housing prices? Half of those asked thought so. 40% said the effect was minimal, and nearly 90% thought housing prices are still too high. The researchers believe that explains why most people they asked thought the special stamp duty should stay, and why 40% thought the policies aren't doing much to bring down housing prices. They expect prices will shoot up if the measures are less tough, something they say the general public would not like to see. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
And that is a solid wrap of our news. Thanks so much for watching, and good evening, everyone.
Good night.